Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Eric. I'm the account manager at Connecting Up in TechSoup New Zealand. We're part of the Info Exchange Group, a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges by creative use of technology. For those of you that haven't attended a webinar session with us before, Connecting Up in TechSoup New Zealand facilitate online webinars, workshops, boot camps, and webcons to help the social sector upskill in all digital areas, and you can check out more on the training and education menu on our website for more details. Today, I'm super excited to welcome you to join today's webinar, which is Perfecting Your Plan for Your Nonprofit Website, which is being presented by Belle Temby. Belle Temby is from Digital Services Lab, which is a WordPress website specialist for nonprofits and for-purpose businesses delivering awesome websites and digital solutions. She loves working with people who love doing good. Apart from working with brilliant people, she runs workshops, guest presents on podcasts, and pops up on webinars like this one. She lives remotely on the far east coast of Victoria. In her downtime, you'll find her out in the wilderness or cooking up a storm. Now, before we get started, we'll do just a little bit of housekeeping here. All the lines are going to be muted, so if you've got any technical issues, just type that into your questions box, and I'll do my best to assist you with that over here. If you've got any questions during the webinar, don't be shy. We really love it when these sections are interactive, so go ahead, feel free to type in your questions, and I will relay those through to Belle as the webinar goes on. Now, if you're on a Wi-Fi connection and if you've got multiple programs open, that can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video streaming, so just close down the other programs if you can. We just want you to have the best experience that you can today. Now, last couple bits here, this webinar is being recorded, so if you want to go back and watch this later, don't worry, you will be able to catch the recording. We will normally send that out a business day or two after the webinar runs, so don't fuss. Similarly with the slide deck if available. Now, the last thing I do want to say as well is that there is going to be a short survey for feedback at the end of the webinar, so if you could just take a minute or so of your time to fill that out once the webinar ends, that would be much appreciated. Otherwise, that's it from me. I'll hand it over to Belle now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Eric. Great to be here today, and happy Tuesday, everybody watching. Welcome to Perfecting Your Plan for Your Nonprofit Website. And I think my bio was a bit of a tongue twister there for poor Eric, so I might have to adjust some of the words there. I'm coming to you today from Bidawal country out in Malakuna. So hello from Bidawal country, and I would like to take this moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which we all meet and recognise their contribution to our great country. Now, as Eric said, we love working with people who love doing good. We are not only a creative, but we are also a strategically minded digital services agency. We're a small agency and we work with a lot of nonprofits and ethical businesses. And among the services we offer are digital strategy workshops, web design and development, search engine optimization, website care plans and hosting for WordPress websites. And we do a lot of graphic design as well. So I've also got a couple of programs that I'm going to announce at the end of this webinar that you might be interested in. So I'm Belle Temby, the Director of Digital Services Lab, and I run this business with my husband, Mike Temby. I have a background in the not-for-profit sector that runs for over 15 years now, and I have been working in Digital Services Lab specifically for 6 years. And together, Mike is our senior developer and I'm the project manager. So together we service our clients. We have a great little team of people. We have a copywriter and content developer who is an SEO expert. We have our graphic designer, and we also have a data analysis expert who puts together some pretty amazing sheets for people to read and understand how their digital tools are making an impact online. So today we're talking about perfecting your plan for your nonprofit website. And today I wanted to introduce you to the website quality matrix that we've come up with. So the idea, just having a little technical difficulty there. There we go. So basically the question I have for everyone when I show this website quality matrix is, who here would love a website that you can be proud of, that demonstrates the impact of your work and also helps you to work smarter and not harder? So we know this is what everybody wants. And before we can perfect our plan for a website, we must understand what makes a good website. At Digital Services Lab, we've developed this matrix. So let's have a look. We start with two key factors that determine the quality of a website: the aesthetics and the functionality. In our matrix, I'm showing you the aesthetics axis. That is the look and feel. From spending years talking to our clients, we know that when the aesthetics are bad, the staff and the stakeholders of the organization find the website to be embarrassing. They don't share it and they don't lead people to it. So all our clients come to us and say, we want a website that looks professional, it's modern, and that looks great, that we are not embarrassed about. And that's great, of course, but a website has to look amazing. So you have on one end of the spectrum, the professional website, and on the other end, the embarrassing website. And actually behind the scenes is equally as important, and that's all about the functionality. So on our next axis, you can see that we've got the functionality here. And on one end, you've got the inefficient, and on the next end, you've got the powerful. So when you have a website that is aesthetically embarrassing and lacks functionality, that can be really damaging. There is no reach, and if people do find the website, it's outdated. This kind of website loses business and actively hinders growth. And that's what we call a damaging tool. Then you've got a website that looks great, but lacks strategic functionality. It's basically an online brochure and it's not taking pressure off staff. And there are many tasks that still have to be done manually that could have been automated. So that's what we call a static tool. Then we get to a website that runs well, it automates tasks, it's been made by a super whiz, technologically speaking, but it isn't aesthetically pleasing. It's not very professional looking, and that is what we call an unrealized asset. It's costing the organization connections and leads, because when people go to that website, they can't connect with it, they don't engage with it. So it's got all this great stuff in the background, but none of it's resonating with the people who come to the website. So that's what we call an unrealized asset. And then we have a website done right, and that's a website that enables you to reach a bigger audience and have a much bigger impact. It becomes one of the most valuable members of your team, and it frees people up from doing repetitive manual tasks so that they can focus on what they do best. So if your plan aims to be in the top right quadrant here, that's when we have an active asset. That is when your website looks great, it communicates who you are and what you do, and it becomes one of the most valuable members of your team working for you 24/7, being able to handle inquiries, taking referral forms, donations, volunteers, all the things that are really valuable to us that we can't do all the way around the clock, but a website can. And it helps you focus on what you do best rather than worrying about all the other all the other manual stuff that you know is just a waste of time. So we've determined that there are 6 keys to an active asset. So let's talk about those 6 keys. They help to create a website that is, when you're planning for your website, these are the fundamentals that you need to take notice of. The first one is a beautiful design. The website should be modern, professional, responsive, and it needs to be on brand. It should inspire visitors and be something that you're really proud of, that you're happy to share, that you'd put your name to in a grant application, and that you know if a philanthropist were to visit it, they'd be blown away. The next key to a quality website is having a strategic direction for your nonprofit. So incorporating your business goals, your financial strategy, search engine optimization strategy, and clear messaging is really important. There's no point just saying, oh, build me a website and she'll be right. Of course, we have to make sure that it aligns with the business goals that we have. It also needs to be guided by trustworthy expertise, not just of the web development and design, but also an understanding of the sector and how to incorporate best practice between the two. And then, of course, a great website needs user-focused quality content, a well-thought-out structure, and clear messaging. A quality website has functionality that allows you to work smarter, not harder, including automations, integrations, and monetization. And then your technology needs to be reliable. That includes a good server, a backup plan, up-to-date software. You need the website to be optimized, fast, and as easy as possible to administrate. So that is the six keys to an active asset. And if you can plan to achieve these 6 keys, you will be well on your way to a great website. So let's talk about the process. And this is really where that planning comes in. So now we know what a good website is, what the 6 keys to achieve a good website are, and now we're going to dig a little bit deeper in what you can do to make that happen at your end, whether you're building it on your own on a really small budget or whether you're going through the custom-made website angle. Okay, so this is the website process, and this is a process that we follow at Digital Services Lab. So I'm sharing it with you today, and I'm hoping that these will be your key takeaways for putting your plan together. Okay, the first step is really starting today. We're already here in this webinar and we're planning. So when you put together a plan for a website, you don't just say, all right, let's just talk to a developer, or let's just ask a staff member or volunteer to put it together. You could do that, though you'll get a much better outcome if you are clear on what the website can do for your nonprofit, who you are serving through the website, and how it can build efficiencies for you. You need to be clear on all of these things. So your business goals, and this is an interesting one. It's not just about the website goals, it's about reviewing your operational plan or even your strategic plan and thinking about how you can achieve some of the goals that you've set out through a digital platform. So if your goal is to bring more people into a particular service, to build capacity in a particular area, to increase applications for positions that you have available, there are just so many things that you can achieve that can be achieved through a good and well-planned website. So I think it's really important to marry these two up. And so you go through your business goals and then you say, all right, well, this is how we could achieve at least a part of this through having a well-functioning website. The next thing to plan is what your customer expectations are. What do your customers want? And that's your clients, your customers, your donors, all your stakeholders. What is it they expect when they come to your website? What is it that they want? What is it that you want them to do? We need to understand all of that experience of a customer. It's also good to, I'm not saying to copy anyone else, but it's good to get competitor research. So to understand what other people are doing in your field, what their websites are doing, they could give you some great ideas and then you can improve upon those. Or they might show you something that you shouldn't do because you don't like what they're doing or replicating on their own website. Competitor research is important in the planning stage. Then your website strategy, and I'm not talking about doing a 40-page document on a website strategy. It can be a 1-pager, it could be a 40-pager if you had a super large organization. But the idea would be that this is what we want the website to achieve for us. So you actually note it all down and you start benchmarking. We want more visitors on the website. We want this many people signing up or expressing interest, or, you know, so you want to understand what are we trying to achieve, and then what page of the website might achieve that, or how is that going to be achieved through the website. So that's a little website strategy. Then you want to analyze your systems and processes, the administrative side of your work. So this is all the things that you're doing from, you know, how do you collect people's details? How do you send a newsletter to people? If you look at all of those systems and processes, you might find ways where you can take those processes and put them into the website, building that efficiency. How can the website speak to your other systems and processes, and how can you bring staff along for the ride and make sure that they're happy with that that next level of automation and integration. And another part of your plan will be to select a framework. So there are WordPress is a framework, and that's the framework that we build in. You have other platforms such as Squarespace or Wix. That is where you're really renting a website through Squarespace and Wix. You can't actually take it with you somewhere to another server or host, for example. So you need to select your framework and understand not just what you need now, but what you might need in the future. So selecting a framework is a big part of that as well. Moving on to the next stage of your plan, you actually want to map out your website. So this is the website pages, the hierarchy, the page structure, the content, and the header and the footer. And I'll show you a little bit more about that map. Okay, so what I've got here is an image. It's a basic example of a site map, and it shows you some of the main pages all feeding from the home page. So typically when the site map is done correctly, you'll have your home page is where everything stems from. And then you have a primary menu. So you know how you have a menu on a website? It's called the primary menu, the one that you see when you're on the home page. These pages listed here in the diagram are all main pages on the website that would be the primary menu. Then if we have additional pages coming from those, such as under About, you might have another page called Team or another page called the Timeline. So it showed a timeline of the organization. They would fall under the About page. So we want to map out the pages that you need. And I know you can see there's a little text there, and I'm sure that you can't read it, but it's basically saying, it's a breakdown of what do we need to put on those pages. So what we do is here, once you've mapped out the pages that you need, it's time to map out the structure of each page. So this is where many of our clients actually get stuck because they have so much info that they want to share. It becomes hard for them to cut it and cull it down into readable, digestible, persuasive chunks of text. So you need to think for every page. What information needs to be on this page? What do you want to tell your visitors on this page? And what action do you want them to take at the end of the page? So in a website, you are actually guiding people to the next step. They either take that step or they don't, but your job is to show them what you want them to do next. And that it's a completion phase. So you can see in my example in the image here, the page structure is the hero. And I'm going to show you what this looks like visually in my next slide. This is for a service page. So the next section of the site might be what we do. It might be who it's for, how we assist you, when we are available, and how to reach us. So there'll be more content under each of those subheadings, but what we're doing is creating sections on a page that people can scan. They can go back to the information that they like, and you always have about, I think it's less than 6 seconds on every web page. I'm not up to date with the data of 2023, but I believe last year when I looked at the surveys, it was about 6 seconds that it takes to scan a web page and make a decision about what you do next. That's how much time you have. So it's super important that when you structure out your pages, your headings are really clear to the people that are reading it. And it has to appeal to a lot of people at a lot of levels. So once you have your page structure, you can begin writing the content for each section of the page. I'm showing this image here. It's a home page of a website that we built. And again, it's going to be quite small for you to see right now on your screen. But this is just so that you can visualize what a section on a page looks like. Every web page consists of sections, and within those sections is a space for your content and images. So as you can see here, the text per section really needs to be succinct. And as you can see in this example, each section is taking them to another page. There's little call to action, the pink buttons that are under each bit of text. It's taking them to another page where further information is available on the topic or service or whatever it is that they're communicating on their homepage. So once your content is actually ready, you need to think about, is it going to fit in these nice little spaces and sections? Is it bite-sized enough that people are we've captured their interest enough so that then they go off and they explore further on your website? Or they might be ready to sign up, and then you've got a get in touch section on that side. So just going through this sections theme, you'll see at the top of that image, there's a menu. It's very small, but there's a menu. Further to that, there's creating a healthier you, and that's what we call the hero section. And that's where you have a very, a limited amount of text. Maybe you have a call to action, maybe you don't. It depends on what the website is based on. the next section says, let's talk about you. So the aim that these guys have taken is to really engage the user so that they can determine, is this website for me straight away? And if it is, here's my flagship program. So you can, and then there's the programs and services, meeting the people from the team, some information for health professionals further down, and all of this content has been structured and organized in the way that we're prioritizing the paying customer above other stakeholders, although other stakeholders are important as well. So they're the sections, and you want to try and get your content into those little bite-sized chunks so that when you give it to your web developer or your designer, or you might be doing it yourself, and that's completely fine, that it's going to insert really well, even if it's into a template. So then we go on to talk about the design. So I personally love working with my clients on the content side of things, but undoubtedly, I think the most fun thing for everyone when I'm working on a website project is bringing all of that great work together and seeing it in a beautiful design. So there are two common ways to approach design, and I'm only going to talk about these two. There might be a lot more, but let's just talk about the main two. One is that you have a custom-made website, meaning that it's designed around your content. So you will do the content part typically first, and then the design is made for you, and it's based on all your branding and your style guide, etc., etc. The second option is that you do it yourself and select a pre-designed website template. You also might work with a web developer or an agency that do pre-designed website template work. So the design of the website is actually done, and they go in and they change the color scheme, but the template itself is sitting there already. So your budget typically dictates which way you go. If you are having a custom design, you will complete a brief, you will select the colors or provide a style guide, all of your logos, you'll source images, and potentially you have a photographer, so you're really making your content pop out of the screen for people. And if you select a pre-designed template and then try and mold your content to that template, you could get into a bit of trouble. So sometimes it's better to go and get the template first and then look at the work. The template always has some placeholder text in it. So you might want to look at the placeholder text, and then you say, okay, well, I'm actually just going to take the placeholder text, do a word count on that, and then I'm going to replace my copywriting into that placeholder text so that it fits perfectly, and there's not a lot of custom work that you're going to need to do with that template. So the process that I'm showing you is based on building a custom website, but it can absolutely apply to a template. You just might want to be aware that if you're designing through a template, that you may flip it, find a template first, then do your structure. So it does become more restrictive, but it can, like I said, it can be a good thing for people on smaller budgets. So in the design process, you either complete a design brief, you'll select colors, source images, you will select a template if you're doing the DIY. And if you are building a plan and you are planning on outsourcing your website, just be sure that you sign off on designs before they get built. Just make sure that there's a process with your developer, please, because this is where some of the miscommunication happens. When you don't really see, you don't have an idea of what the website looks like before it's built. So then you get a project that you're not happy with, or sorry, you get a website that you're not happy with, and the project process becomes, well, it becomes a bit of a nightmare. So do make sure whoever you work with in your plan that you sign off on some designs before the build. Then there's also, I just wanted to mention this, it's a little technical, it's the low fidelity versus high fidelity. So lo-fi and hi-fi designs, basically a lo-fi design is what we call a wireframe. It's almost like a skeleton. So you just have an outline of the pages drawn for you. It'll say, well, this is the section hero, and it's not very, it is visual, but it's the lo-fi visual. The hi-fi is when you have an entire web page designed, and I'll just go back. So this page here that I showed you, whilst it's a screenshot of a website, we do all our designs in high fidelity. So that's the difference. Lo-fi is a wireframe kind of skeleton, a blueprint, if you will, to all of the pages. where your hi-fi is, you're seeing the images, the text, all of it come to life before it actually gets built. So that's just a little explanation of that. So you can say to developers, are you doing lo-fi or hi-fi designs? And you'll blow them away because you knew that technical term. Okay, the next part of the website process is the build. So at the build point, you want to make sure that you have a few things under control at a minimum, and I've listed those here. So one is a content delivery network, and that helps to optimize your content, including images, videos, so that when it's delivered to the person at the other end, it's basically optimized as much as possible and is achieving good speeds and performance across the web, which helps boost your SEO. It does a lot of things for you. You want to make sure that you have an anti-spam plugin at a minimum. You want to make sure that your emails are hosted. So not all people that host websites host emails, and it can be very beneficial for you to separate those two things. So have a think about that. What payment gateways you'll use. So if there are payments that you're taking online, which I hope they are if you're going down this exercise, you'll need to set those up. So you'll need Stripe or PayPal or whatever your choice is. The bigger, the better security measures are in place, the more friendly they are across multiple foundations. So, you know, it is important when you're choosing a payment gateway that you get one that's quite familiar to a lot of other developers, so that they have that cross-pollination ability. Then you want your domain name, you need domain name access. So your domain name, again, is hosted somewhere else. So you need to make sure that you've got access and that you own your domain name so that it can be built. And then you need to authenticate. This sounds like a big list, doesn't it? But it's important. Then you need SMTP or an authentication of some sort. Because when if I fill out a form on a website and then that form that form is then sent as a notification to someone in your office, and it's potentially you send a notification to the person that completed the form, the email, we'll call it the website email address, the email address that the website is sending from needs to be authenticated. Otherwise, every email that you have coming out of your website is just ending up in spam. And that could mean that people can't reset their passwords. They can't, they don't get notifications of when they've completed something on the website because you didn't do that authentication. So that stuff is really important. It can be a little tricky, but once it's done, it's usually left and you only have to concentrate on that once. And then you've got your forms, confirmations, and notifications. So you want to just make sure that once my form is completed, what is the message that I have on screen for the person that's completed the form, and then whose email address should my notification go to internally? Do I want to send an email externally to the person that filled out the form? So these are the things that no matter how basic your website is, you want to make sure you have them. And then the more complex your website is, of course, there is a bigger list to add there, and a web developer can take you through those, or a project manager will take you through those items. But they're the basics. Now, getting into one of the final phases is the launch phase. So this is where, hopefully, if you've gone to a developer, you will just be checking against the signed off designs. So you've already said, yep, this is what the website looks like. Did they deliver the website that I signed off on? Yes or no? You want to make sure that when the website is delivered to you, typically for some testing and quality assurance at your end, you want to test the links, you need to test the forms, you need to test the plugins and the add-ons, and ensure everyone knows the date of the launch. That's really important. It is important that you actually do test these things. I know that there are sometimes, it can just be a sentence in the form notification that didn't sound quite right, or the developer uses the default one, which typically happens if we're not told what to do. So it's really important that you do test it and go, yep, that's absolutely right, especially if you work a couple of days a week. And if you're not working with a developer, you're going to have to do all this stuff yourself anyway. So every single button you need to go on and check that it works, that it opens up the right page. It's really important that your website works well, otherwise you're going to lose engagement from people. So that's the launch phase and the tasks required in the launch phase. And then you've got the grow phase. So this is where we talk about the, the capacity building within the organization. This is where making sure that you are trained to use the website, or that you have a process where if another staff member comes on board and you lose the person that built the website in your office, you need to have a provision for training for the next person to take it on. You potentially, if with a developer, a maintenance plan is a really good way to have someone in your pocket that knows what they're doing, that updates the website, that provides the maintenance, that updates content forms, so as you're growing, you've got someone to help you grow your website with you, or as you're changing. Then you need to make sure, of course, that your hosting is taken care of, that your security measures are in place, and that there's always a system of improvement and review. So that's what I call the growth phase here at Digital Services Lab. And that there is the website process laid out again. And so what are the benefits of doing all this? You put in all this work, it probably sounds, quite complex. So let's recap what the benefits are. So one is you'll have a stronger reputation. You'll have a website that reflects the organization's image, it's credible and trusted. Next, your website should attract donations, create new income streams, and will work smarter, not harder, to boost profits for you. And most importantly, you'll be more visible and reach more people, which is really the aim of a lot of our work in the not-for-profit sector. We actually want to help more people, attract the right people to our organisation who either need our help, need our services, and we want to engage our target audience so that it leads to a bigger impact. So when you work with us, you get an active asset that not only looks good, but has a bigger impact and helps you to reach more people, be more visible, and achieve the goals of your organisation. It helps you to build a stronger reputation because that builds the credibility and trust. And when people land and see something professional and modern and it looks great, they're going to love what you do and they're going to fall in love with you and they're going to be more inspired to work with you. So there's just so many benefits to having a fantastic website that's done right. So I hope today has helped you get a little clearer on the things that you might do, whether you're working in-house on a website or whether you're going externally to work with an organization. I really hope that this sets you up in making sure that you're really clear on your objectives, that you know what it is you're hoping to achieve, that you've put some time and effort into organizing the content and the structure of the web pages, and prioritizing what people need to see, checking out your partners and other people who are doing similar work to you, checking out their websites so that you get a sense of what works well and what doesn't, and all that's just going to lead to just a much better outcome when you actually build a website. So I just wanted to talk about 3 ways to work with us. We've talked about some of our services before. Some things that we have coming up, we've introduced some programs that we're running for the first time this year. One of them is Marketing That Makes Sense, and that's for when you don't have a big budget in marketing and you want to think outside the box, you want to do something differently, but it's on a shoestring budget. So we're doing a 3-month program, and we're taking expressions of interest for people who might be interested in that. We're also introducing a do-it-yourself website with professional help. We've definitely learned that not all organizations have the budget for a custom website project. And we also know that people often don't have all of the technical nous to set up some of that, the harder stuff, the authentications of the emails or some of the forms, or just even some of the basic things like, how do I make this button actually work from a template to a live website? So I think if you are interested in and have a smaller budget in building a website, but with professional help, so we come into a live space together to guide you through that process, and there's some one-on-one support as well. If you do have any interest in that, please reach out to my email. It's there on screen. Otherwise, of course, we do our custom our custom website projects as well, but we just wanted to try and assist more organizations on those smaller budgets, and making sure that we were still there to take care of some of that more complex work. And so yeah, I invite you to catch up with me, and I hope you have enjoyed this webinar. Eric, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Belle. Thank you so much for presenting today. That was a brilliant webinar, and thanks everyone for showing up. Now, we haven't got any questions through yet, but I know we've got a little bit of time, so I'll give folks just a minute or two, just if they've got any questions, now's the time to ask people. So go ahead and type those in, otherwise I'll just run through some of the outro housekeeping here in just a bit. We did get some questions just around, was this being recorded? Are the slides going to go out? As per usual, yep, this webinar was being recorded, so we will be uploading that and sending that through. That ought to be going out either tomorrow or on Thursday, so keep out for an email from us. Keep an eye out, that is, and you'll go ahead and get that. And similarly with any of the other materials that we can share with you. Similarly, there is going to be a survey at the end of the webinar once I close it down. So again, if anyone could spare the time, the feedback is really appreciated. That is about it from me, but I can see that that has prompted a few questions that have come through, Belle, so I will read them out
Yeah,
to you
great.
here. Excellent. So we've got the first question that's come in here that says, when approaching a developer for a new website, what do you think are the key pieces of information that you need to provide?
I think that, well, it's really a conversation, and hopefully the web developer will actually guide you in what you both need to work on together to reach the best outcome. But I think one of the things that I enjoy seeing is a bit of an idea of what that sitemap might be, or at least a summary of the goals. So, you know, some background on the organization. This is what we're about. This is our key audience groups, and that might be, these are our donors. So you just a sentence on each, by the way, it doesn't have to be anything big. Talk about who your stakeholders are. Talk about what the issues are with your current website and why now you're taking a moment, or why you've decided to invest in this process now. And then if you do have a sitemap, that's great. You don't need to have a completely defined sitemap, because hopefully through the project management side of things, when you're talking about content, the web developer will come up with ideas with you about how that sitemap might work. And we also want to maintain, if you have an existing website and it's not a completely new project, we want to make sure that the reputation that you have built online already, so through search engine optimization, people finding you through Google search, that means, that the integrity of the main pages are kept. So you don't want to just throw everything out and start again necessarily. The data will also reveal that. So yeah, coming with a bit of an idea of a sitemap is a good one, but it doesn't have to be a firm, this is what we're doing. And then if you actually have the structure of those pages and the content, that is the thing that holds up every single project, honestly. It's the content. And then once a project is held up, it starts going into the cycle of other projects, and it becomes harder and harder to deliver a project quickly when the content's holding everything up. So having the content done is great in the background. Whether you take it to the developer in the first instance doesn't really matter. But I hope that helps in answering that question.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Now, we've actually got a follow-up on the same question there, which is, when you're looking for an external provider, what are the top things you should be looking for?
One thing I would look for is, have they worked with other organizations in the not-for-profit space? You might ask for referrals directly so that you can speak to their clients. So I get asked that quite a bit, and that's a good way to verify what they're doing. Another thing is to understand, like, are you going to do all the content yourself, or how much help are you going to get with a particular area of the website, and what is their process? So in my slides I showed you this website process, so you want to understand what their process is. Do they have a well-defined process? And yeah, just understanding how many, not how many projects they've delivered, but what types of projects they're delivered. first and foremost, really, you're going to be working with this person or it should be people we have 3 people across our team, but you do want to have a good relationship. You need to trust that they're going to deliver the project for you. So these are just ways of understanding if you can trust them, really.
Great, thanks for that. All right, the next question we've got here is what sort of anti-spam systems would you recommend if you've got any?
Yeah, so one of the ones we use is Akismet, which Akismet. That is a good all-rounder anti-spam tool, and that would be a basic one. Just trying to think of the other. So I'm not the senior web developer in my business. Just trying. Oh, sorry, I've forgotten the other tool that we use. But Akismet is a good anti-spam one that's generally used across WordPress websites. And I'm not sure of what Squarespace or Wix are doing. So look up Akismet, and then there are other programs that you can use, or other plugins that will support the security and monitoring on your website. And you could look at Jetpack, although it's quite heavy. It can be a bit of a heavy load on a website in terms of slowing it down, but it is an all-rounder. And if you're doing it all yourself, then I recommend checking out Jetpack for WordPress as well.
Excellent. All right, the next question we've got is, how do you manage too much information on your site?
Yeah, good question. I think, and it's brutal, and I do it to a lot of my clients. I feel terrible because they put so much work into getting their content out there. I'm like, okay, we have to cut this down. The way that I manage too much content is you're really talking in 50 to 100 words on any particular section of a page. So the less the better, because you've got to understand, people today are time poor. They're on their mobile phones. If you look at a mobile phone, you're just scrolling passages of text, you switch off. So if you do have, when you need to be more verbose, and that might be a research project or, something that it is essay style, then you put it on a blog, and you can go for 3,000 words if you want it on a blog. You still need to have a good use of headings and subheadings, but that's where you're verbose. When you're talking about the main pages of your website, the idea is that you say, this is what we do in a very succinct way. If you're interested in, this is who it's for, and this is how you get in touch. These are the benefits of working with us. Like, it's really simple stuff, and then it's people getting in touch. So you just have to give enough information that a person understands what you do. If you work with people like me, I actually handhold through content. So I don't write the content, but I help make the content work for the user. So I put myself in your audience's mind, and then I talk through, well, what do I need to know in this massive sentence or massive paragraph of text? But it is hard. It's hard trying to be succinct. It's like writing a grant. It's exactly the same process as writing a grant, where you're limited to a word count, and you've got to cut a lot of the stuff that is expressing what you do.
Awesome. Alrighty, last couple questions here. This one is, when starting with design, should it be mobile first or desktop first approach, assuming we don't know the analytics on devices?
Oh, okay. So if you don't have the analytics on devices, then basically you need a responsive website. So it is mobile first is the way everyone's going, and a lot of websites are now trending over 50% of people accessing their content via their mobile phone. But it has to be both. So if you're working with a designer, then, and you might be restricted by budget, and if you're not restricted by budget, then you can get a design that will show you, this is the desktop version, and now this is the mobile version, which is, we do that when the budget is permitting. It just has to be both. If you start at mobile, then it's going to be hard for you to visualize what it's going to look like on a desktop. I like to work from the desktop down to the mobile, but that's just, that's our preference here. So if you had data, I know you said if we didn't have data, If you had data that supported 80% of your users were on mobile phone, then I go, all right, let's just go to mobile phone design. But either way, the developer has to build it for all of these responsive device sizes. You know, we test for 10 or 13 different size devices, from the mobile phone to the iPad to the 13-inch to the 11-inch, and then the big monitors. Yeah, I hope that I don't know if I've answered that question for you, but the idea is that when you're working with a designer, they should be designing it with responsive design in mind. That's how it works today.
Excellent. All right, another question that's come in here. Have you got any comments on changing hosts?
Yeah, the only comment well, sure. I guess the first question I ask is, do you have access to your domain name, and do you have a good relationship with your current host? You know, if they're a small host, any larger organization, you should have no problems changing host. It's really it's a matter of getting the site files, putting them on the new server environment, making sure that they work prior to switching, and then you update the domain records to move to the new server. It's in the background. It's quite simple. If it's simple, if you're working with an organization that hosts websites. If you are doing it yourself, as in you're just talking to one host and then to another host, and you know, let's say it's a bigger organization that you're moving to, then you can usually request them that they help you, and it's just a matter of getting the files and having access to the domain name. It also means that you have to be on their server, has to support your type of website. So you can't move a Squarespace website to anyone new, and you can't move a Wix website to anyone else. That's the service is through them. If it's WordPress, you can go to anyone that hosts WordPress websites, but you just have to make sure that they're tested before they actually go live, and you switch the domain name records over to the new server.
Excellent. All right, questions keep coming in here. The next one we've got that's come in is, how do I handle websites for multiple language groups?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. So I think the budget go-to, and I'm not saying I recommend this, is Google Translate. And one, in the future, all of these complications will become much easier in translations. At the moment, they're still, even though they've been around a while, they're actually still in their infancy, and they're not overly correct in the way that the translations work. But one of the groups we've worked with previously we still work with them today, but they have opted to have each section has actually been professionally translated for their group. So it's replicating, you're basically having dynamic content. So as a user, I come to the website, I select my language, and then each page, so you deliver different content depending on the preferred language of that person. So it takes more time, you have to build more pages, but that's the best way, is that you actually get those pages translated by a person that is a professional translator, and then you deliver the content based on the person's preference when they enter the website. That's the way to do it properly, if you want it properly translated. Otherwise, you have tools available to you, and they're not brilliant, but they're better than having nothing sometimes. So that's the choice that you have to make, and it might be a budget choice, because translation services are expensive, especially when you talk about doing multiple translations and different developers, and then having a developer have to come in and build that dynamic structure in the website.
Awesome. All right, coming back to some of the web hosting stuff, someone's asked if there's any local Australian web hosting providers that you would recommend.
Sure, we host websites, so can I recommend myself? There's quite a few. If you're looking for super low budget, and you don't have, so it really depends on how the size of your website, how many people how much traffic you're generating to that website, and how you need it to perform. So there are Ventura IP, Australia. They have servers in a number of places in Australia, so your data is only collected and stored in Australia. Venture IP, that would be my top recommendation other than us. And so it just depends on what the needs of your website are, how basic those needs are, and potentially how much support you need. I like to know about backup redundancies and all that type of information before I would select a host. I mean, if you wanted to have a conversation about it, I'm more than happy. The best person to speak to wouldn't be me, actually, but it would be Mike. But if you email me or give me a call, send me a text, then we could organise an appointment for 15 minutes, 5 minutes to talk to Mike about his recommendations.
Excellent. All right. Next question here is, how do you decide between having a long page or a long list of menu items?
I'd almost say, what is the long page? And why do we need a long list of menu items? I think that's probably a very specific question. And I'm happy to have a chat with anyone that's sitting here today. If you send me an email, I'll send you a link to book in with me, and we can have a bit of a strategy call. They're free. I do these obligation free all the time. I work with Info Exchange in their tech hub as well. So I'm more than happy to have a chat about that specifically. It's really difficult to broadly approach that question, but I would say the content that needs to be on a page needs to be there. Whether the information is succinct or not is another thing. And is it okay to have a lot of, I think what you're talking about is, well, now I've got to scroll to get all this information on this page. We're used to scrolling, where that's our experience of the internet these days. We scroll on our mobile phones. As soon as we pick them up, we scroll with our mouse. It's okay to have a lot of content on a page. The question is, does it need to be there? And when it comes to a big menu, the menu just needs to make as much sense as all the pages and the content on the pages.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that brings us to an end for questions here. So thank you all very much, folks. That was very great to see those. Was there any last words that you had, Belle, or?
No, just thanks for having me here today, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you again on a webinar soon.
Excellent. All right. Well, look, thank you again very much, Belle, and thanks everyone for showing up. If you do have any questions that come to mind later, feel free to send those through to us offline and we'll flick those through to Belle. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. We hope to see you next time. Bye.